this is hate crimes against Indigenous women, right? Because I'm an Indigenous woman.
Well, it's effectively creating, for the purposes of governmental support, an antithesis to the solution. Okay, so antithesis is antithesis, which is the opposition of our theory. So whatever theory that we have, that we've constructed of the world and the law that we're putting forward, the government is putting the opposite up. Okay, it's called, I think they call it cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the terminology used, where what happens is there's levels of understanding, okay, and people who are on a smaller worldview often think that the people who are on the more expansive worldview are crazy. So it comes down to smart people often sound like crazy people who don't know much.
Yeah, because I had a customer call us up yesterday, and he explained that once he kind of researched a little bit more into what we were doing and the common law stuff and the everything, the histories, he realised that his auntie Eileen wasn't so crazy after all.
Okay, so it often presents, that's kind of a trap, if you know what I mean. Because what happens is, to a person who has limited knowledge about a subject, the expert and the person telling lies, because they haven't heard the terminologies before, sound the same, and it's easy to be misled. If you're trying to explain television to, the concept of television, you go back to the 1800s and you try and explain to somebody who's never seen the capturing of an image and the transmission of it through wires to another place, you're going to sound crazy. No, there's nothing, there's nothing there. There's wires. How can you transmit a picture through a wire? Commonplace now, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know how it's done.
Well, I do. But what I'm saying is that if I was trying to explain that concept, or even the concept of radio communications or anything like that, if I was starting, like, let's look at the genius who did that. Oh, Nikola Tesla. He was called crazy. But now our world is the Tesla world.
Here's another example of that. Not quite the same, but at the moment, throughout this journey, when I first started, I was told by my own family members, and these are family members of Te Hapukus, that I was lying about he whakaputanga, and that I was lying about the flag, and that I was crazy. And now, with all, after enduring the basic things that people endure when they're called crazy, now...
Which is incredulity and skepticism.
Yeah, so after, struggling really hard to promote he whakaputanga in the flag, and then it's gotten to the point where, we live on an island, so it was easy for the information to be spread. It was, because I've got a lot of cousins and a lot of relatives, and if it wasn't for my crazy uncle knowing, who could vouch for me, all of a sudden...
your family would have just thought you were crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? My crazy uncle who vouched for me, he's not fucking crazy. He knew the whole time.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
None of them are crazy, those people that talk about those high-level concepts.
Well,
they're not crazy. Yep.
Okay, and so it took about 2 years. It's been 2 years now, or 3 years, and now it's commonplace. Now the man at the dairy knows about he whakaputanga and the 1834 flag, and now I'm not getting called crazy. But now I'm being called a scammer, and and that our product is fake. And and
level of the same thing.
Yeah, so that's just an example of the people accusing us of that have limited knowledge, or
that's exactly right.
Or that they are purposely trying to sabotage the work that...
Well, there could be that too, because people are losing power and control.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me that it was an education minister spokesperson doing the Radio New Zealand announcement against me, because without educating the kids with rubbish, they lose their power, and so they can't have it in the schools, little tamariki learning the true histories. But the other thing is, it's gotten worse now. It's gotten to the point where I'm getting like threats of physical violence towards me. But you know, these cards, I'm making an honest living. You're making an honest living. They are real. We are identifying with our correct islands, our correct jurisdiction, our correct geographical area of existence. We're identifying.
People who are in New Zealand are wrong.
Yeah, and we are identifying with our hapu, and so what our cards are real.
Genuine.
But because of the cognitive dissonance, it's kind of like, I feel like we were too advanced for our time, but it had to happen. It had to happen. Like, we got in there before Agenda 2021 kicked off, so we kind of stopped some of the Agenda 2021 plannings because we rose up and spoke out against the agenda.
Of course. But, how it is, it's always that way when you're a pioneer of a concept or a different type of thing. You always meet resistance because people do not like to change and they don't like to be wrong about things.
But there's two options. You've got two options. You can either identify correctly with your correct islands, your correct jurisdiction, your correct identity, your correct tribal hapu identities, and identify as a common law, lawful person, or whatever. Like, what do we say if we don't say person?
Well, it doesn't matter because you and I are speaking English. We're not speaking legalese.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
When we say person, we mean man or woman.
Yeah, so you have two options. You can either get the New Zealand passport that is full of creepy codes, and actually you then enter a contract and agree with Agenda 2021 and child sacrifice, because that's the codings inside of the New Zealand passport.
Inside agenda of the New Zealand government.
Yeah, and so you can go on then, go get one of those genuine New Zealand satanic passports, or identify as your true, the islands, the true correct names of the islands, the true geographical jurisdiction, and our hapu names, identify correctly, or go down the satanic path, because somebody needs to talk about, like, why am I the only one that talks about the satanic stuff? Is it because
you're not the only one? You're not the only one, but it's like one of those things, how difficult it is to speak of what happens with children and things like that, the types of abuse that exist, and even abuse between partners and all that sort of stuff. It's really unspoken. It just happens, but people don't want to talk about it because it's too painful. All right, so that means, people, that if you encounter something that sounds crazy, it might pay to just tie-ho and, do a bit of research before you condemn that person for being crazy, because, to be honest, in my experience, and I have to say that probably in yours, if you be honest, there is a lot of times where we've thought something was completely off the planet, crazy. That's our downfall, when we too quickly condemn something for being crazy when it in fact is the truth.
Instead of threatening people with violence,
how about you hit the books?
Yeah, well, they can't, because there are no books on this.
Yeah, but I mean, there are little tidbits of information if you search.
Now there's things on television now, like even TV New Zealand. They've done a whole series on He Whakaputanga now. And then you've got the He Tohu exhibition in Pipitea, which is just basically across the road from the Beehive in Wellington at the National Library. They have the He Tohu exhibition, which is on permanent display. It displays Te Tiriti o Waitangi. It displays the He Whakaputanga. See, this is what I don't understand, Peter. How can Radio New Zealand do a damning report against us? They called it criminal, so it's in the criminal section of Radio New Zealand. How can the Ministry of Education say what we're doing is fake? But
it can't be criminal. I mean, without a crime, there is no criminal.
Yeah, but then on the same token, TV New Zealand did that whole TV series. What was it called?
Don't know. Sorry?
Have you not seen it?
I don't watch TV.
It's on YouTube. It's a Civic Centre TV program about He Whakaputanga. So how can that be on television, right? And how can there be a He Tohu exhibition? But then on the same token, how can like an Indigenous woman like me, who's tūpuna autographed He Whakaputanga, how can I be told to be making fake IDs when we're making the IDs with the genuine hapu names, the genuine name of our islands, and the genuine jurisdiction and geographical area? Now,
listen, fake is a specific term that they're using. They're using it because it's a legal term to mean a copy. Right?
But nobody's done this. Nobody's done this. This is our intellectual property.
Yes.
And also the other thing, Peter, if people keep threatening to hurt me, or if they keep harassing me, like these are just random people, or if the television and the radio announcers and the news hub keep crucifying, then they've
created the hate.
This is hate crimes against Indigenous women, right? Because I'm an Indigenous woman.
Well, it's effectively creating, for the purposes of governmental support, an antithesis to the solution. Okay, so antithesis is antithesis, which is the opposition of our theory. So whatever theory that we have, that we've constructed of the world and the law that we're putting forward, the government is putting the opposite up, which is the antithesis of ours.
Okay, so it's kind of nonsensical because with the television New Zealand documentary or the civic series called The Citizen's Handbook, it explains very briefly the geographic area of Te Moananui-a-Kiwa, the names of the islands, and the He Whakaputanga. It explains the hapu, the tino rangatira, and it also explains the straw man being used in court, and they use the straw man to get someone off a case, and they use the changing of the hat in government so that the politicians can do whatever they want.
Yeah, so they just basically explain it. And you know, so what the government try to put forward is a perspective that's in opposition to what they just told you, you know, like the confusion.
Yeah, because on one hand, you've got Radio New Zealand announcers and news hubs saying that, you know, we're making fake cards, even though we're doing it in accordance to He Whakaputanga, in accordance to our geographical area, our islands, Te Moananui-a-Kiwa, and in accordance to, you know, the common law concepts, and so they're saying that we're fake based on that, but they've got a whole television series which is available to view on YouTube.
Which explains our perspective quite nicely. Well, some of it anyway.
Well, it's exactly, and they did it after we made the cards.
Yeah.
Because we launched the cards in
That's what I'm saying.
2019, way before Agenda 2021. So we kind of got in there a couple of years before they launched. Well, we got our passport C-passes in 2 years before they launched their vaccine passport. So we kind of blocked them or put a spanner in their works, perhaps.
Yeah. They've been trying to develop their perspective to dissuade everybody. But, they know that we're going to win. But it's just a numbers game, and they're trying to slow it down by creating the antithesis to our perspective.
And that's
by telling
the
everybody
confusion.
that we're fake.
And that's the confusion aspect, because Fedor, the demon of confusion,
the underworld,
who was actually Ahriman is the demon of numbers. So and he's the demon of confusion, and he's in the New Zealand passports. So it's kind of like, doesn't surprise me that they're trying to confuse the people.
Yeah.
But Radio New Zealand...
Confusion is what they have. What do you think the traffic light system was about?
Confusion.
Why was it confused with the level system? And the vaccinations working, not working. The whole thing was actually confusion. Businesses didn't know whether they were Arthur or Martha, whether they were allowed people in or weren't they, were they allowed to wear a mask or weren't they,
and so confusion,
were they allowed vaccinated or weren't they? And
the confusion emphasizes mental illness, and so that's why mental illness and suicides just skyrocketed. Yeah,
because they find, and why we had so many suicides and all the rest of it that people complained about during COVID. It was the confusion that really did it. The breakdown of what would be normal life